As Meghan Markle doesn't seem to know, in showbiz, timing is everything. If the difficult Duchess wanted to get a better press, she might have asked that hapless husband of hers to drop his excruciatingly self-obsessed legal bid to force his father's government to provide him with armed police protection. The pathetic spectacle of oh-so-entitled Harry sitting in a London court as his lawyer desperately argued that his fading royal status warrants automatic gun guard cop security whenever he visits Britain rather overshadowed the release of Meghan's new podcast series, Confessions of a Female Founder. No doubt about it, Harry's embarrassingly egocentric lawsuit deflected attention away from his wife's latest attempt to prove she's an entertaining interviewer, which epically failed because she so isn't. In fact, she couldn't interview her way out of a paper bag. Throughout this rambling mutual appreciation smugfest with billionaire dating site tycoon Whitney Wolfe Herd, you wonder whether Meghan is listening to a word her accomplished, if somewhat fawning guest says. After each response, the hopeless host swiftly returns to her favourite subject: herself. Never mind you, Whitney, and your super successful company Bumble. Let's talk about me. Amid the preposterous plethora of petty platitudes, there are precious few inquiries about the secrets of entrepreneurial success. Instead, as she obsessively plugs her jam-peddling online bric-a-brac site as ever, Meghan informs us that this tawdry moneymaker is an extension of my essence. More evidence that the Duchess struggles with the English language but speaks fluent Californian claptrap. Meanwhile, this prattling pair of self-satisfied wealthy women from Dullsville, Montecito swap toe-curling sycophantic compliments and share their post-birth problems, both of them having suffered from the high blood pressure condition preeclampsia. Our sympathy, of course, but these unexpected medical revelations come across like a classic case of celebrity headline hunting, generating decent publicity for all 8 painfully prolonged 50-minute episodes, but clearly not quite decent enough. In America and Canada, the opening instalment only made it to number 6 in the Apple podcast charts. In Britain, even worse, 11th. In Ireland, a lowly 22nd. South Africa, 17th. And in Australia, it limped in at a seriously feeble 57th. Around the world, critics were united in their contempt, all of them just as caustic as they were about her Pound Store Majesty's nauseating Netflix lifestyle show With Love, Meghan. Awarding it an arguably generous 1-star, London Times reviewer James Marriott wrote that while enduring the vapid lessons in self-love that saturate Confessions of a Female Founder, he was, and I quote, seized by an urge to beat my head against the wall. Woundingly, he added, receiving business advice from a Californian multimillionaire who owes her fortune to marrying a prince is as illuminating as you would expect. As in, not at all. So, I guess, on reflection, it may have been a good thing that all eyes were on Harry's 2-day courtroom drama and not on perennially boring Meghan's latest exercise in towering tedium. Which brings us back to that timing issue. While the Duchess tries horribly hard to turn herself into a cash cow, the British government's barristers describe her husband's long forlorn battle for armed guards as a continuing failure to see the wood for the trees. Harry didn't have to be at the High Court. So why did he make the 5,000-mile journey? If it was to see his father, the king, he was out of luck. Amid reports that Charlie has had enough of Harry's brat-like behaviour, just as his son arrived, he was climbing onto a plane with Camilla for their state visit to Italy. Did the prince come to London just to make the front pages? You might think that. I couldn't possibly comment. Not forgetting, of course, that elephant still in the ever-darkening room. Those deeply damaging accusations by seething Sentebale charity chief, Dr. Sophie Chandorka, that the Duke of Sussex is a condescending colonial-style racist bully who talked down to her. Serious charges he strenuously denies. But can Harry deny that he's fixated on his hated brother William? Can he deny that he wants armed cops around him just because that's what William gets? And if he does deny it, will we believe him?
But let's talk about the latest royal news. And you know what it is. It's always about Harry and Meghan. I kind of feel like I need to wash myself down with Dettol every time we have a conversation about these two. You, of course, are a royal biographer of Prince Harry and many other royals, including the Queen Camilla. But it's interesting, this battle that's been going on about the charity, which the Sentebale charity, which Prince Harry started back in 2006 in memory of his mother, Diana, Princess of Wales. So Princess of Wales. The Duke of Sussex, we are now told by the brother of Prince Seso, he's the charity's co-founder, lost interest in Lesotho and in the charity. Basically, after he got married to Meghan and moved to America and really had fading attention. And he said they killed the spirit of the charity after he left Britain in 2020. Do you think that's right?
Yes, I'm quite sure that's right. I mean, Harry and Prince Seso were really pals because they both lost their mothers in car crashes. And they wanted to build this, which would be in the spirit of their character. So it's a very emotional thing, not just to do a goodwill thing. And they were very close. And then Harry stopped coming the minute he was married. And that was it. But there's a nasty taste towards it, I'm afraid. You've had this before, that I'm quite sure that Meghan didn't want him to go there. She was very happy to go to Africa, but she refused to go to where the Sentebale charity was. And I think
do we know that? Because my thing is, at the end of the day, I know you've known him well, but this is my thing. We've all seen this in people's family fallouts and things like, oh, well, it was the wife that did it. But, you know, he's his own man. He's a grown beep man. He can make his own decisions. If he wanted to go and look after the charity and go there, he could have done it.
No. But you have to say you've got to be strong enough. He's not. He adored her. I don't know if he still does, but he did adore her, and he wanted to please her. And she was very disappointed that he didn't have the money that she thought. She thought she would be hugely rich, and it's not. He only had a few £1 million, okay?
I mean, he inherited 20 million from his mum, didn't he?
Yes, but
I mean, how could you get by on a mere 20 million?
Exactly. But I mean, she was disappointed in it. I mean, once she'd got him, once she'd got his prince, she knew she would be very famous throughout the world. She knew she would be very rich because she would make sure that he encouraged her to do that. And I think you're being particularly kind because she is really a spiteful, nasty woman. And she wouldn't, at the Invictus Games, she's ruined that too, because she's taken over to do all the speeches. You know, she starts having a kissing game with him so that they get the cameras onto her.
Wait a minute, now hold on a minute. A kinder interpretation would be that it's bigger news if she turns up, and then the news media are more interested, they get more sponsorship, more help for the charity. And then, let's face it, the Invictus charity is brilliant, so is the Sentebale charity. She's helping him.
No, what she demands when she comes, and she sometimes doesn't let you know till the last minute she turns up, she has a very expensive hotel, she has to have very expensive clothes, she has to be very paid for any travelling she had to do.
Ooh, for a charity.
Such amount of money that there's nothing left. That's the trouble. Is that what I mean, we know there was the battles with the chief executive of the Sentebale charity, and then the attempts to oust her, and she's still in place, and that all became very much big news. This is Sophie Chandorka, and it looks like there had been some falling out between her and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. But I mean, she's talked about how, you know, she has Meghan, you know, turns up at the last minute with her celebrity friends like Serena Williams, and that is a problem. But I don't remember her saying anything about the huge cost that it imposed on the charity. No, no, I didn't say that. It's Invictus Games that
Oh, well,
has.
Victor's got apologies, right? Apologies.
Yes, it's
Okay.
Invictus Games that she's asked all the money.
Okay.
This one she didn't. She just came late and she drank champagne all the time.
Yeah, got the pictures
And
in the paper because we're
you
foolish
know,
and talk about it.
it's very sad, but Harry was marvelous at them. I
Yeah.
was, with him once. He was with those little children who were very frail, that HIV and AIDS they could have had, or their parents had and died. He was completely brilliant with them. But Meghan made the diary, and that was it.
Yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, I mean, no love lost there, certainly between Angela and Meghan there. What do you make there? I mean, surely Meghan will be able to pay for everything herself now with her new As Ever brand.
Well, she can get rid of him now because she doesn't need him.
Well, he turned out not to be as useful as you think. Well, apparently she tried to heal the royal rift by sending King Charles an As Ever gift box of some of her items. I don't know whether it involved the jam or who knows what, maybe the bath bombs, I don't know.
Jam.
But this is what the US media are saying. We've also been told, haven't we, that Prince Harry, again by the US media, that Prince Harry has been cut out of all communication. So, for instance, his father won't return his calls, won't return his messages, doesn't keep him up to date on his cancer treatment, and he's out in the cold. But I'm wondering, he wouldn't be doing that because he knows it goes into the public domain as soon as he does.
Yes, of course it is. But actually, let's go back to what she's sending. It's the only place that they're sending to our country, UK. They're not going any further. So that's a bit of a mystery how it's going to go from that. It's a sample one. And the thing is that it's really a trick, in my view, and you won't like this either, but it is a trick, because if she gives it to King Charles, he won't want it, he doesn't want it. It's certainly not going to be compensation for all her rudeness and nastiness. She hates the UK, and but he has to answer because that's polite. That's it. It's very cunning. If he says, oh, thank you very much, I'm delighted with it, then thousands of people, she thinks, will buy it. So that will give her a wonderful format to get going. It's cunning. You can't think she wants to be nice. It's not nice. It's awful. And she, it's a PR success.
Oh, clearly it's a PR job. I just think fundamentally people who, unless there is a risk of abuse, unless there has been serious abuse of anyone involved, although, of course, some question marks over what Harry reckons of his parenting by his father, to withhold the grandchildren from their grandfather and indeed their own cousins and uncle and aunt in William and Kate, I just think is really tragic. So many families have gone through family rifts and people do that. It is cruel. It is absolutely cruel. It really, really is.
It is so cruel because they're missing so much, yet they've got their title, Prince and Princess. And if you go to a school like that, you know nothing about it. Kids can be quite unpleasant. Who are you? Where are you? And I think it's very upsetting. And you learn a lot from other members of your family. All she's got is her mother.
Yeah. And that's it. It's interesting that she is so distant from so many of her family members, and he's now distant from Harry, from many of his friends. My rule is always never keep away from your child people who would also run into a burning building to save them. People who will love your child as much as you.
That's a very good idea.
Keep them close. Keep them involved in your child's life.
Yes, but it's really sad for the children.
The whole thing is sad. The whole thing is very sad, tragic. Do you look? You know Harry well. You think he's kind of changed completely since he met Meghan. I was very hopeful. This is a boy who found love, and would go and have a happy life. If he'd gone off to have a private life, I would have cheered him onto the rafters. As it is, it's all just been very tacky. There's talk about a second memoir. I'm not quite sure how much has happened for a second memoir, but I no doubt it would be another bestseller. Do you think? And again, we're not inside any marriage. There are lots of people who think someone's got a good marriage, then they get divorced, or someone's got a bad marriage and actually they're deeply, deeply happy and their marriage is fulfilling for them. But do you think this survives? Because a lot of people who talk about, oh, he should leave her, you are talking about two children as well. And children, we know, need to have, as best as possible, to have two parents in the home.
It's very, very difficult for him because she will demand to have the children. And I think the legal things in where they live is very different from in the UK. I don't think that he could come back with the children, but if he can, she was going to make a huge fuss about it. It's going to be really terrible. And it would be very difficult for them. If he thinks about the children, they would be bewildered by coming across a whole new, different way of life.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for staying for the whole interview. Royal biographer Angela Levin, thank you for that. Philip Ingram, particularly coming back to you on, do you want to talk about divorce? We'd rather talk about the Invictus charity. It's a fantastic military charity. Now, the initial story there was about, you know, the Sentebale charity and him losing interest in that. But Invictus Games are still ongoing. But what do you make about, I mean, the role that Prince Harry has still in somehow in international, national life?
Well, you know, Harry does fantastic things for Invictus and for veterans. He'd do more quite happily. But, you know, Harry, I think, gets too much bad press, A, because so many people don't like his wife. I don't know her, but even Donald Trump is commenting on her. So I have to sort of listen to and believe what other people are saying. But also, I don't think he's recovered from the mental traumas that he's had from a child and from his military service. I think he's still suffering from PTSD.
And you're very open about because you yourself had suffered from
exactly.
post-traumatic disorder, and you sought treatment, and it massively life-changing.
And I can see that in everything that he's doing, and that will cause him to withdraw. That'll cause him to be deferential to what his wife is trying to do. That'll cause him to try and force people to look after her and treat her like the princess that she clearly wanted to be, and pay for things and all the rest of it. And he won't stand up to her. You know, there are not many marriages where the man will stand up to his wife if his wife is a very strong character.
You can say that. I'm married to the stubbornest man in Britain.
Well, exactly. There's some very good marriages out. Some very good marriages out there where it works, but a lot of them it doesn't.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
One Los Angeles photographer, Meghan Markle, initially sought full control over paparazzi images of herself and Prince Harry when they first came to the great United States of America. Now, this is a Californian paparazzo named Mark Karloff, who's been in the business for almost 20 years. And he said that public interest was truly off the charts in 2020 surrounding Harry and Meghan. But current demand for snaps of the Sussexes, he says, is at an all-time low. Quote, when Harry and Meghan first came here, it was a mad scramble to find out where they were staying, where they were going to be living. And it was every photographer in LA trying to find out every secret. At the same time, they were running around doing mock 3, 2, 1. At the same time, they were running around doing mock photo ops. They were doing setups. They would pop up and be doing charity work. And I think it was their photographers. So everyone was very frustrated. I'm just going to insert myself here to say, I remember this so clearly. There was one photo op where Harry and Meghan were distributing school supplies, I think, for Baby to Baby, which is Hollywood celebrities love this charity. I actually think that that's where we might have seen Meghan's mom with Kris Jenner at a Baby to Baby event. I'll Google that later. But I know for a fact that Jessica Alba and Kerry Washington and Tyler Perry are all heavily involved in that charity as well. But I specifically remember those images of Harry and Meghan donating some sort of supplies to children. They were wearing masks. They were handing them these supplies through car windows. And that was a photo op. Additionally, this one really got under my skin at the time. COVID had just hit, nightmare from Hades. And we were all being told to stay in our homes because it was dangerous to leave. You know the drill. It wasn't that long ago. And somehow my local I'm in LA, somehow my local news station had security footage from an apartment complex where Harry and Meghan were delivering meals to people that had weak immune systems. Now, tell me how they got that footage. It was just such a vile, desperate attempt at positive press at the time. I remember, and I liked them. I had no clue that these people were horrible yet. So I remember sitting back watching that thinking, well, that's a blatantly obvious PR opportunity. The fact that my local news station in the midst of a global plague has conveniently received footage from an entire apartment complex with Harry and Meghan delivering meals. First of all, no apartment complex is going to put their tenants in that kind of vulnerable position. It's a violation of privacy, really. It would be a violation of privacy for Harry and Meghan too. They would have to assume. This is not something that they would do without Harry and Meghan's permission. So obviously this was all orchestrated by Harry and Meghan so that they could get this good press on throughout the local media. You've watched your local news before. It's a cat stuck in a tree. I did local news. I had to stand in the pumpkin fields and in October and report on the biggest pumpkins. I had to really, you think that those people are out chasing security footage of no, they've got other things to do. They're first of all fixated on the local community. And second of all, like, no one would think, let's try to get security footage of Harry and Meghan doing good deeds. Okay. So I know exactly what he's talking about, and I firmly believe every word of it. So Karloff, he hosts a podcast called the Paparazzi podcast. Well, maybe we need to do an exclusive interview with him. That sounds fun. Said the initial period after the Sussexes hightailed it across the pond, these are the New York Post's words, and set up camp in the U.S. came with an intense pursuit by photographers eager to uncover their new life in California. He says, I shot them at a couple of events when they first arrived, and then I decided it was too much for me, the craziness of that kind of photo. I stay away from it because it's not exclusive and they don't make as much money. Now, he is talking to Tech Report in this interview. So that is a quote he gave to Tech Report. But he also says that public interest in the couple has significantly decreased in recent years, resulting in a reduced demand for their images. In the US, and in my experience, it has died down a lot. Now, they aren't worth the hassle, and the payday isn't the same. People don't care as much as they used to. Now we can't get a break. Every 3 minutes, she's posting pictures of food on Instagram. Like, oh my, like, help, SOS. Ultimately, he said, they can't hide forever. So there are opportunities to get them, but I think they want control, Meghan especially. Nowadays, photographers wait for an opportunity to get them instead of actively trying to get them. Additionally, an insider told the Post that the couple who tied the knot in 2018 engaged in staged photo ops in Los Angeles and the surrounding area. I mean, throwback to them walking around the rubble of the Los Angeles fire. Oh my gosh, that's what I'd call a photo op. Often with their own photographer present. So gross. The Post has reached out to reps for the Sussexes for comment. Now, Karloff previously revealed that the first clear picture of the Sussexes in their plush Montecito, California pad was expected to have a price tag of $100,000. He said that when COVID restrictions were lifted and people got used to the fact that the pair had relocated to the Golden State, it was always going to be a little bit of a frenzy to get them, which is like another big, like, you say you want privacy, you say that you want to, away from the paparazzi, that you're not safe, and you move as close to Los Angeles, California as you did. It's ridiculous. It's the hypocrisy, the contradictions. They're overflowing. It's a volcano, which is convenient since volcanoes are the same color as Prince Harry's ginger head. They're going to be hounded every single day, at least for the first few months. He said back in 2020, they're not going to be able to go out without being photographed. The couple were famously caught up in a so-called near catastrophic paparazzi car chase through Manhattan in May 2023. I can't believe they even wrote that with a serious face. The duo found themselves at the center of a high-speed pursuit. Get out. Happy opposite day after leaving a theater with Markle's mother following an event. The best part is that they didn't even list that Meghan Markle was accepting an award there. That's what Meghan would be mad about. An email is a common New York Post. She wants you to clarify. She had a trophy in her lap. However, law enforcement sources later described a much less dramatic ordeal, saying the chase only lasted about 1 hour as the family switched to a yellow cab to try to get the Paps off their trail. What a genius move. The Sussexes ultimately didn't file any charges over the incident, but the NYPD announced in 2023 that the pair will receive heightened security during future trips to the Big Apple. 4 cars, though? Really? Doesn't seem necessary. Indeed. Here we go. Markle last week arrived with a 4-car convoy. Get out. I can't. Oh my gosh. But also, like, I do, every time this happens, I do think we should point out that Prince Harry was like threatening the NYPD. That was what killed me by this. That's what killed me at the time. That's what killed me about this story and still kills me about this story. That Prince Harry would threaten the NYPD, saying he was going to get Governor Gavin Newsom involved. Grow a pair. Life is not fair. We just all don't have millions of dollars to pitch a fit and to sue people that hurt our feelings. And that, grow up, Prince Harry. It's time. You are a father of two, and that's not even counting your dogs.
There's a wonderful picture of the King and the Queen, or actually a number of papers. They're standing resplendently at the top of the steps on the plane with the cipher, the royal cipher on one side, the Union flag on the other. I mean, the trip to Italy has been a roaring success.
I think it has, but you obviously Harry seemed to have taken all the headlines away because they go there, but Harry being in town becomes the story. You can't get away from it. So there will be a degree of frustration, I think, within royal circles that yet once again Harry and Meghan have found a way to upstage them. He came over for the court case, which he didn't need to. Then he goes off to Ukraine, but you'd have to say it was a success. The Queen, it was their 20th wedding anniversary during the visit, and obviously he spoke in Italian as well to both houses of Parliament within Italy. So terrific performance, PR perspective, and actually exercising once again the element of soft power that he can do that. And he obviously loves Italy and the sort of culture and the history, and you really got that sense. And then the Queen gave an interview saying, dream on, about him slowing down, which he's 76, and as he keeps battling through cancer, the better he gets, the more determined he is to work as hard as ever, which is because he feels he lets people down if he's not out and about and doing what he's supposed to be doing, which is serving this country.
I mean, my setup producer, you know Gabriella, she's Italian, and she was so impressed with the way the King and the Queen behaved in Italy.
Well, I think Italians, yes, it's, you know, they used to have a monarchy back in the day, but it's not something they have now. But there is a great link. We know Italy and Britain, we all, you know, love going to Italy. There is a link between the two. We, as the King made reference in his speech, we have played fast and loose with Italian cuisine at times, but which I thought was which is true. Italians are appalled at the way we have spaghetti bolognese, and what they think of our version of lasagna, God only knows. But anyway, the fact is, from a PR perspective, I think it was a success. But as I say, you know, Harry coming back for his court case, then he goes to Ukraine when he's coming to this country complaining about security, and next minute he's off to Ukraine, and I believe it was through for Invictus Games, which is fine, meeting wounded servicemen and women in Ukraine, which is perfectly laudable. But in terms of security, that's a nightmare. So you know, once again, there's a sort of strange sort of pattern of events that Harry sort of engineers. And then he now comes out with an interview saying he was forced out of this country. Well, if you look at the history, again, we've got into recollections may vary territory. There's once, you know, he said one thing in Spare, and now he's saying the polar opposite, which a former Home Office member is saying, well, this is just not true what he's saying. So at the moment, Harry saying is again creating problems for himself, because the stories he tells, I think he's forgetting what stories he's told in the past, and actually that's an accusation that's often levelled at Meghan as well, who will rewrite history to suit.
What is driving Prince Harry?
I think he's just bitter and twisted, and he just can't see. He thinks he's entitled to be treated differently to everyone else. I think this is the problem. He doesn't, you know, the rest of the royal family just get on with it. Yes, you know, he's no longer a working royal, and he says this is even more important to him about his security beef than anything he's had with the media. Well, I think he would never come here without some level of security. And as they've always said, we'll review it case by case, working on what intelligence we got. We're not going to leave him high and dry. I'm still convinced it's a convenient excuse for Meghan to say, I'm not coming to this country.
Yes,
You know,
I would agree. And also, you're right about the hypocrisy. So you go from saying, I demand some sort of state protection. The next minute, you're in the middle of an active war zone.
Yeah, and I mean, that's the problem. And you think, OK, he's Invictus Games is extremely important to him. And, you know,
I get that, but he was sitting in Ukraine with a top saying Invictus Games. I thought that was at the height of bad taste.
Well, I don't necessarily think so, because I might disagree with you there, because the Invictus Games is a very laudable
I agree with
initiative. And I think for him to go there, because bearing in mind the next Invictus Games is taking place in this country, and we as a nation have been very supportive of Ukraine. So as a result, I think I understand. But actually, to do it when you're complaining about security, when you're putting yourself then in the front line of a war zone, I find, you know, again, this is what people are questioning. What's going on here? You know, is this country not safer than Ukraine?
One would think so. Just finally, and we've only got a minute left, but just in terms of the relationship between William and Harry, I mean, I imagine that's pretty irreparable now.
I think it is, and they've got to. It's never say never, as we're saying with all these things. But I think the sense of frustration from William, and not just William, I think the rest of the royal family is, oh my goodness me. I think he's just rudderless at the moment, Harry. While his wife is plying her trade, selling this, doing that, Instagram podcast, which was dreadful. That's the point. She's busy, whereas he at the moment seems to only have work around court cases and sort of feeling, as I say, rudderless, not sure where his life is heading.
Yeah, Rupert, always good to talk to you. Thank you very much, Rupert Bell there, our royal correspondent, talking about Prince Harry upstaging the King and Queen on what was an incredibly successful visit, I would say. Let's just talk about Prince Harry, shall we, very quickly. This is the front page. It's a very strange front page, I think, for the Telegraph. Harry, how they tried to trap me in the firm. Oh, here we go, diddums. The Duke of Sussex believes his police protection was withdrawn in an effort to prevent him and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, from leaving Britain to start a new life. He said this was a very difficult decision. It was difficult to swallow. He said the king is at the heart of this conspiracy against him. Look, at the end of the day, you are not going to be a member of the royal family. You're not carrying out your duties as a member of the royal. So why are we paying?
Because you decided not to.
Because you decided not to. Ravek decided that you did not, therefore, need police protection, but you could have it on an ad hoc basis when you come back to the UK if you're coming back in a formal capacity. And he basically says that this was used as some sort of massive conspiracy to keep him and Meghan in the UK. No, it wasn't, Harry.
It's sort of a bit of a break with reality, I think. I just think he just... look, with Prince Harry, I veer between getting very angry about him, the things he says and the way he's acted, and then actually just feeling really quite sad about it all, because, you know, for years he was, you know, the sort of, people liked his personality. He seemed very warm. He had this sort of slightly cheeky, chappy persona. You know, he has served in the armed forces. He, you know, has set up the Invictus Games and clearly cares very much, you know, about veterans and all of that sort of thing. And then, look, I'm not just going to blame it on, you know, him meeting the wrong sort of woman or whatever, but then things in the last 5 years, things in the last 5 years have just veered dramatically off, and he just seems so very, very isolated, which is where, as I said, I veer between getting very, very angry with him and he's just mad, slightly delusional.
Well, I was about to say, so you mentioned to me off air that he was almost delusional, and the more I thought about that, I think you have a point. He is so detached from reality that he believes he has a God-given right to have police protection. Now, he says, it's not my fault, I was born into this family and I've had protection all my life and therefore I can't live without it. But you made the choice to leave this country.
I mean, it's quite literally, I feel there's some awful joke in here about having your cake and having your jam and eating it or something.
Yeah, dreadful jam, very expensive jam.
Very expensive.
Sprinkled with love, or whatever it is.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
But yes, as you say, we were talking, I just think, you know, there has been some kind of break from reality, break from, you know, rationality, even by the standards of which, of course, he was born into very unique and very privileged circumstances. But even accepting that, the whole way he seems to have been going about things and looking at life in the last, you know, 5 or 6 years, I mean, it just doesn't, accepting that privilege and accepting the uniqueness of his life, none of the decisions he's made seem to make any sense. And let's also bear in mind, you know, he's got this other the other ongoing issue rumbling away in the background is whether or not we're actually going to know what happened with his application to go to the US. And obviously he admitted in his book that he had taken some variety of drugs, which is obviously, you know, you're not meant to do that if you're wanting to get into the United States, and there's various legal machinations going on with the Heritage Foundation, which is a sort of US-based sort of think tank outfit, as to whether we're going to ever know what really happened with that application. So. You know, look, as I say, that he has a lot going on, but he just, I mean, look, at best, he just doesn't help himself when he comes out with this stuff, which, by any reasonable, you know, judgment, most people look at it and just go, what are you, like, what are you talking about?
Well, I agree. That's what I think every time I read anything about him and Meghan. What are you talking about? And Amy,
sort of also the idea that, you know, sort of Ravek and the Home Office could be involved in some kind of grand conspiracy. I mean, it's just a nonsense.
Of course it is.
I mean, what is going on here? Because first of all, we wanted to talk to you just about what his requirements are in terms of what he's asking for in the High Court. He's in a court of appeal, so he's already lost it once. He's having another go, wasting taxpayers' money, and suddenly at the end of it, he up sticks and heads off to Ukraine. Doesn't apparently tell the Royal Buckingham Palace protection people. It's not clear whether he told the Foreign Office either.
No, and to be honest, Mike, you couldn't really make it up. I mean, considering obviously the argument he's trying to put across to say his life is obviously at risk or heightened level of risk, and then going to Lviv, and okay, you know, the Foreign Commonwealth Office put Lviv down as basically only to travel to for essential business. One's got to question how that resonates in the wake of him obviously being here in London, and also the pantomime that happened yesterday, as I'm sure you heard, Mike, with someone from the public gallery shouting out, and his close protection, who, to be honest, if I'd been on his team, I would have been somewhat embarrassed to be herding him straight out of the court because there was a potential risk, which ultimately turned out to be one of his supporters anyway. Right. So, yeah, I mean, it's all a bit ridiculous. And certainly in terms of what he wants, you know, he's rejected the royal family. He's rejected his royal duties. Why should he get a free ride?
Well, quite. And, I mean, he's also wasting an awful lot of taxpayers' money, and I'm hoping that at the end of all this, he gets the bill for it, because I don't see why we should be paying for his constant whining and whinging and sort of appeal after appeal after appeal. And when he walks around, by the way, he seems to have a fair amount of protection. I mean, in your understanding of the business, I mean, he's got about 5 or 6 guys around him there, hasn't he?
Yeah, and many of those guys are his former royalty and specialist protection officers who looked after him when he was with the royal family. So, you know, he has got a very good security team from what I understand. I've got very good friends within RASP, as they call it, the Royalty and Specialist Protection Team. And those individuals, you know, they would be extending, obviously, the courtesy. His argument in court is that he doesn't have access to inside intelligence. He doesn't have access to the Home Office in terms of the risk assessment of his visits to the United Kingdom, which, you know, literally the last time he was here was back in 2024. It's not like he's over here on a regular basis. Yeah. And he's not over here doing anything for the royal family. He's doing it for his own personal needs. Now, his security, yes, it will be expensive, and that's what he's bulking at, that when he does come here, he needs to have security. However, Ravek, the overall group which risk assesses each of the royal family members, they're the executive committee of royalty and people of profile committee. So they will look at each individual case and they'll suggest what they have. And I know for a fact that he will have an officer attached to his security team when he comes over here, who will coordinate, obviously, his logistics, his journey management, to make sure that he is not at risk. And, sorry, Mike, just to add to that, you know, if he is visiting members of the royal family, then he gets all the collateral benefit of all the security that they have as well.
Which, of course, he chose not to do this time, as he did last time when he came in. And it presumably would also be a safer bet for him if he was to take up the offer of perhaps what his father has offered him in the past, you know, a place to stay on the royal estate, which is a lot easier to protect than a room at Claridge's.
Yeah, absolutely, without question. You know, you can't have your cake and eat it, and that's really what it's coming down to. You know, the bill for him, I'm estimating probably per year, with the number of jolly jaunts that he goes on, whether it be to Liev or anywhere else for that matter, probably costing him close on to about 5 million a year. Now, we bear in mind how much money him and his wife are making. They've got more than enough money. I mean, I know people, certainly people in the public eye, very well-known household names that I've looked after, who will go, you know what, Will, I'm going to walk down Kensington High Street, or I'm going to walk through the City of London on my own, without attention. And there are a lot of Hollywood stars who come over here who don't want, you know, close protection. They don't want executive protection. They want to do it on their own. So Harry is really over-egging this. And I feel sorry for his security team because they're probably doing a really good job. And added to which, I've taken clients into hostile environments, a heck of a lot more risky than Lviv, and we haven't even been armed. And he would set a very dangerous precedent that if the Home Office or the royal family pay for his protection, then ultimately that opens up the whole channels for everybody else that may say, oh, I need security as well.
Yeah, it does start to get very expensive. And finally, Will, I mean, you know, Prince William, the Prince of Wales, went off to watch a football match for his favourite team, Aston Villa, getting slaughtered by PSG. But, you know, that didn't seem to cause any kind of upset at all. I'm sure he had protection, but it wasn't, you know, he sat in the crowd. He wasn't treated like a special VIP. You know, he spoke to football pundits afterwards very well and all of that. You know, why can't his brother just be more like him?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, again, the lower the profile, the lower the risk. You know, there could be specific intelligence. And I'm sure if there was specific intelligence, Mike, for one of his visits to the UK that said, yes, there is a heightened risk against you, then, of course, they're going to attach security. The Met Police, RASP, RAVEC are not going to want to embarrass themselves on the world stage. We have a great reputation for protecting principals and members of the royal family. So, and one of the things with the RASP guys is they're very low profile, very discreet. You wouldn't even know that they were there unless you were looking for them.
This week, helping me tackle all the biggest headlines is royal author and historian Hugo Vickers and royal author Charlie Ray. I have to ask you really quickly, Hugo, I saw that you were in the States. I know that you did some speaking around my country. Did you get any unsolicited opinion when it came to what was going on right now with the royal family? As you spoke to some of these American royal watchers, was anybody like, I cannot believe Prince Harry, or anything like that?
The short answer to your question is yes. Yes, so there's a lot of talk about that. I mean, they always seem to want to talk about those two. It seems inevitable wherever you go. Whatever else I was talking about, I do a talk called Queen 2 to King 3, which is like a move on the chessboard, which gives me a kind of a wide berth. They always want me to talk about the future of the monarchy, and I say, well, that'll make a very boring PowerPoint because it hasn't happened yet. And so I like talking about the Queen and leading into sort of as best as I can what's going on today. But it always ends up with those. And at the how much am I allowed to say? Well, you can edit out anything I say, I suppose, if you don't want it.
Yes.
At one club, there was I was doing my the Netflix Crown talk, and it got on to Prince Harry, and one of the women in the audience said, well, you know, Prince Harry chose Meghan Markle. He must really love her. And I said, really? I said, I've only got one last thing to say on that. I dread to think what happened in that tent in Botswana. And the whole audience laughed, and the president looked deeply shocked, the lady president.
This is why we love you. I can't believe you think I'd edit that out. You know, I know that you travel a lot, Charles, too, because sometimes when I'm trying to get a hold of you, you're on like a cruise ship. What is the opinion when you're out and about and people find out that you were the Sun's royal correspondent forever? Do they immediately have an opinion on what's going on?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they have an opinion on various members of the royal family, but realistically, you're talking Harry and Meghan, William and Catherine, and the row. I mean, that's the only show in town, to be perfectly honest. And they really want to know more about, is William a bully? My view is no. Is Harry an idiot? My view is yes. So yes, the royals that have always and will always be, long after we three have all gone, will still continue to be one of the biggest shows in town.
Hugo, does it surprise you at all that Time 100's most influential list dropped today and Meghan Markle is absent from it after shoving a podcast, a brand new podcast series, a brand new TV series, 2 seasons down our throat, and a new lifestyle brand. Are you shocked that Meghan is absent from the list this year?
No, I'm not shocked at all. I think the whole thing has been frightfully boring. I mean, one of the lines that I came out with, because I wrote a book about Anthony Eden's wife, this is, because I do other things as well. And when I gave a talk in London about that, I said, in an age of plastic celebrities where they dissect petals and scatter them over salads in other people's kitchens, it was a joy to talk about a woman of real substance. And that's what it comes down to in the end.
That is so funny. I don't know how much you stay on top of the scandals in the US, Charles, but I was surprised to see Blake Lively on the list. But Meghan has been on the list before, but Blake Lively managed to make the list this year, as well as Serena Williams, one of Meghan's friends. I do think she'll consider it a bit of a sting that she was excluded. Do you agree?
I agree. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, this is a woman who really wants to be noticed by everyone. So, any of these lists where the most popular celebrity is XYZ and she's not on it, and people like Blake Lively, who's involved in a huge big court case, has been involved in a court case, and one of her best friends, Serena Williams, is on the list. I mean, I haven't seen the complete list, so I'm assuming there's a whole load of other top celebrities on there. And Meghan hasn't even managed to reach 100. So it's not a good look for her. But I'm not surprised given what's been going on, what she's doing, trying to sell tawdry items like jam and all this sort of stuff. I mean, it amazes me all the time.
I think we were surprised when they did make the list right upon their Megxit exit. Remember, it was that awful picture of Harry and Meghan on the cover. And then one of the pictures inside, or one of the pictures they used to promote it, the joke was that Harry looked like Meghan's hairdresser because her hair was out to here and Prince Harry was like awkwardly standing behind her. But there was so much mystery surrounding what they were capable of doing upon leaving the royal family, because at the time, their narrative was that the royal family was holding them back, and that they were going to escape this royal family that wasn't allowing them to accomplish what they could because they weren't the priority. William and Catherine were the priority. And here we are, 4 years later, and Meghan is shilling her favorite pair of Spanx from Amazon on Instagram instead of changing the world the way that they promised they would be changing the world. So I did a forensic search because I wanted to know if she made the list, and she didn't. And I guess I'm not surprised either. Hugo, I want to ask you about Prince Harry talking to People magazine again, one of his favorite publications, one of his buddies. He spoke to People magazine, but then a source likely endorsed by the Sussexes, also told People that Prince Harry's calls and outreach to King Charles aren't being reciprocated. First of all, I'd say the way that this is positioned, it makes it sound like Prince Harry's picking up the phone every day. And I highly doubt that that's the case. And second, I would just say, or I would ask you, why does he continue to do this? He's putting his father in a very difficult position, and to a royal watcher that supports the crown, it feels like a violation of the king's privacy.
Well, of course, the first truth is we don't actually know what happens between them. Secondly, as I've said on many occasions before, the king has been very clever because he has left the door wide open, and he has never responded to any of the jibes or any of the javelins thrown at him by his son, of which, as you know, there have been many. And so we have, I think, in the past heard Prince Harry saying that the royal family owes him an apology. In fact, of course, it's the other way round. He owes them an apology. So I think the ball is very much in his court. I think you'll find that if he really made a big effort to see the king or to somehow, conciliate with him, he would be welcome. Less so with his brother, but I think definitely with the king, because after all, the king, is his father. He even said, even quoted in that ghastly book Spare, as saying, don't make my last days miserable by fighting and all these things. And Prince Harry has contributed to that enormously, as he did indeed with the late Queen. I mean, he and Meghan Markle made her last days, but they were one of the factors that made them very difficult, which is unforgivable, actually.
I completely agree with you, and I imagine that Charles does too. Charles, in a Daily Beast article about Harry talking to People magazine, they say, less surprisingly, Prince William, who was trashed in Harry's memoir Spare, as was his wife, Catherine, has also refused Harry's attempts to be in contact. William's friends have made it clear to the Daily Beast that he despises his brother for betraying his trust. Do you feel like despises is a too extreme of a word to describe how Prince William feels towards Prince Harry? I think he's just checked out and he's numb towards his brother these days.
I think despise is quite a strong word. There is clearly conflict between the two boys, and just following on from what Hugo was saying, we know the king does not like conflict of any type whatsoever. We know that, so he goes out of his way, to skirt it around. And you also have to remember that whispering in his ear as well is William, which he is the future king. And the worry is that if you allow Harry access into the inner circle, is it going to end up on Netflix? Or is it going to end up in another book? Or is it going to end up in another
People magazine article?
People magazine article. Yeah. So they're very, very cautious of Harry. Harry hasn't shown anything at all where he can be trusted by both his father, and his brother. And this is a very, very big problem for him and in the future.
So I liked how you mentioned that people ask if Prince William is really a bully, and that's something you disagree with, because I disagree with that as well. I think he just is assertive and knows the difference between right and wrong, and actually managed to develop a common sense, which I'm actually not sure Prince Harry ever developed. I do believe Prince William has some common sense. But you did state that there are questions surrounding Prince William being a bully. Obviously, I think that those some of that gossip was generated from Spare, where Prince Harry talks about physical altercations, and Prince William, his disdain for Meghan Markle, accusing her of being a bully, ironically. There is a report circulating about, well, quite simply, it's the idea that Meghan Markle is utilizing this HRH title. I felt like she posted that letter to her where she is addressed as HRH on purpose. We know she knows how to crop a photo because she crops every picture of her kids. We don't ever see their faces. We'll see a random head, a random back of head, or a random back of hand, but we know the woman knows how to crop an image. And she chose to include the title in this message that she shared on Instagram. Prince William, there's been talk about this vengeance that he feels, and he's going to strip Harry and Meghan of their titles. Quickly, I'll ask you, Hugo, and Charles, I'd like a similar response from you. But Hugo, how much of this is vengeance and how much of this is consequence? They aren't behaving themselves. They're not following the rules.
Well, once again, we don't know what Prince William is going to do, and he probably doesn't even know himself, to be quite honest. But what I've always thought, I mean, sort of rounding up what you said, what she's always wanted and what she has now obtained is global recognition. And how did she do that? She did it by marrying Prince Harry. Frankly, we wouldn't be talking about her if she wasn't married to a prince. And that's what interests people. That's what gives it, if you like, the soap opera element. And so to be, again, okay, you're not allowed to use the Royal Highness thing, but she jolly well uses the Duchess of Sussex thing. And so I could well see how Prince William might decide that a blanket removal of all these things would be a good idea, because there are coronets all over the products. I mean, that's what they do. That's how they market themselves. So it's a sort of detail. But equally, I have to say, rather pompously, it's quite difficult to remove a dukedom. It require an act of Parliament, and Parliament's got rather more important things to think about than Prince Harry.
Is it the HRH title that's really frustrating people, or is it the Duke and Duchess of Sussex? Because I feel like there's a lot of anger surrounding HRH because it's something that Princess Diana was stripped of. So why did we not strip Harry and Meghan of it? Is that easier to remove?
Can I jump in? What
Yeah.
I'm told, I was told on very good authority, and maybe I think I have a feeling Charles probably agreeing with me here, is actually what she said was, no, I don't want to keep it. And then when they took it away, she said, oh, they've taken it away from me.
Oh.
Is that what you heard?
That's absolutely correct. It was
Yeah.
Diana herself who, in one of her strops, decided I don't need the HRH title, and that was in the same vein as I don't want these police bodyguards because she thought some of them were tapping her phone, were reporting to her husband, were doing all sorts of things. So she threw a strop, and she was the one who gave up the HRH, and it was the Queen who said, "Okay, fair enough." And of
Yeah.
course, after, as Hugo quite rightly mentions, it was, hang on a second, but you can't get it
Yeah.
back.
Wow. Well, that sounds a lot like Harry and Meghan, who said, we're just going to jump on Tyler Perry's plane, go do our own thing. And then when the royal family was like, fine, that's when they call Oprah Winfrey and say, we're going to unleash because we're angry over this decision and we started the whole thing. But Hugo, so is HRH easier to strip than a Duke or Duchess title?
Yes, I think so. There is now a rule in place that if a member of the royal family divorces, they automatically lose it because Fergie, the Duchess of York, didn't realize that she had lost it after she divorced, and it had to be pointed out to her. But it is now somewhere written down. I don't know where exactly or how, but that is the form. But it's amazing that they go through all this because they went through such a hassle over the Duchess of Windsor and her HRH. I mean, the Duke, she didn't mind particularly, but the Duke spent sort of 35 years whining and whinging about that. I mean, he was always wanting her to be made HRH. And in Paris, they always said, well, in France, you have equal status. So she was always called Altesse in the house, in Paris. So it's a silly nonsense, really. But the main point is that they are exploiting their name, whatever that is. It's Prince and it's Duke of Sussex, Duchess of Sussex, and little coronets.
Yeah, it's so wild to see. Charles, talk to me about Meghan Markle's use of the title. Last week, we saw her show up in an over-the-top 4-car motorcade to go out for a night on the town in New York. She wanted to see a Broadway show. Is this an overall branding strategy because she is determined to keep the air of royalty while she's shilling products? Or is this just another example of Harry and Meghan's paranoia, primarily Prince Harry's paranoia when it comes to safety?
I love that American phrase, shilling products, because it just sums her up all too well. And just a matter on the Duke and Duchess's title.
Yeah, please.
You have to remember that was a wedding gift from the late Queen. That she bestowed those titles on it. So it would be, as Hugo quite rightly suggests, that there'd have to be some sort of act of parliament to remove those titles. And I'm not sure that William, it would be that vengeful, if you like, to use your phrase, in removing it. I think he would be more concerned with the use of the HRH because it is a sort of gentleman's agreement that they don't use it, very much like Prince Andrew, for obvious reasons, is not allowed to use his title HRH anymore since what happened. And you know that I read this story about this 4-car convoy. Her in one car, 2 other cars decoys, 1 other vehicle at the premises, involving a New York police as well. And do you remember a couple of years ago all that drama that there was about car
Near
crashes?
catastrophic car chase. Near catastrophic.
Which turned out to be complete load of old tosh.
Yeah.
And you wonder why she needs that sort of thing. And I think it's because she wants the status of it all. She demands to be Meghan. We still refer to her as Meghan Markle, although now she's decided she's Meghan Sussex because it's far better for her to be Meghan Sussex than Meghan Markle. And I just can't see how she can manage. I mean, I was reading something just before we got together about how she's now selling some clothes which are very much like the clothes of George, Charlotte, and Louis on one of her sites that for this these branded clothes that the kids wore at the time, which seems to me to be another slight against the Waleses.
And creepy. I mean, it's creepy.
Yeah, but it just goes to show what she does, and what she wants to do to make money.
Desperation. Hugo, when we talk about this status that I think is very important to both Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, part of me thinks that his entire crusade against the government for security is all about wanting to keep up with his brother's status, less about, I don't feel safe in this country, let me just hop on a plane to Ukraine in the middle of a war, but more about, well, how come my brother gets that? I want two sausages, whatever, his tit for tat when it comes to his brother. Is Meghan will Meghan ever achieve the kind of royal association that Princess Diana somehow managed to hold on to after she divorced King Charles? It seemed like everyone wanted her to remain a princess and they adored her. I know that there were some iffy moments around her death where people were angry that she was with Dodi, and they thought that, I mean, he was pretty, I mean, he was pretty gross. He was doing coke in bathrooms in Los Angeles like a month before that. So we got to be, he wasn't necessarily what we would want a princess to be with. But do you think that Meghan has lost that because of the route she took in not only tearing into the British royal family, but now this real monetization of the monarchy that feels vulgar?
Well, surely what she's doing is reinventing herself the whole time, because that's, if you're a member of the royal family, a working member of the royal family, you're in the system and you're doing things for the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth, you're doing it for your charities, for your regiments and all that sort of thing. And so you get on with it. Now they have cut a lonely furrow, a lonely path. And so they have to completely always find some new way of making a splash. And hence, here we are talking about their latest activities. And I don't know how long they can go on doing that, but it seems to me they're forever changing direction. And it's one thing after another. No, of course, she will never have Diana's status. I mean, Diana was actually a very good princess by and large. She had the gifts of all the best princesses of history, which is that she was good with the old, the wounded, and the weak. When she held a baby, it was totally natural. When other people tried to do that, it looked uncomfortable. And she had a particular touch. I mean, I'm sure Charlie will have probably followed her much more than I did, but I mean, I met her about half a dozen times, and she was amazing. And she was really, really good at it. And her people skills were good too. And I'm afraid, in this case, they aren't. It's not going to work.
Yeah, watching Meghan Markle scold her quote unquote friend in a kitchen about the use of a last name is not necessarily something that I would describe as a people skill. Hugo, we talk about this pretty often, so I'm wondering, and Charles, if you remember this, please jump in. I can't remember the exact wording, but it is so funny to watch them chase this status and to think back on the Oprah Winfrey interview when Meghan specifically says to Oprah, and I wish I could remember it word for word, I'm paraphrasing, but she's talking about Archie's title. And she says titles are the grandeur. The grandeur is not important to her. And here we are a few years later, watching her correct people on television about what to call her, watching her repost letters that are where her title is far greater than the title she's supposed to be utilizing. There's an air of desperation. Do either one of you remember that line where she's looking at Oprah and she's like, the grandeur is not important to me? Hugo, what's your reaction there?
Well, yes, if you remember, she was even saying that that Archie was going to be denied a title because of the potential colour of his skin. So she was playing a very nasty race card at that point. And actually, if she had bothered, which of course she wouldn't have done, to look at the George V's regulations about the House of Windsor, she would have known perfectly well that as soon as King Charles became king, Archie would have become an HRH and a prince in his own right, because what it is it's the sons and daughters of the sovereign, and it is the sons and daughters of sons of the sovereign. That is why Princess Anne's children, Princess Margaret's children, and so forth, don't have royal titles. Simple as that. But she actually made it an issue as if they were holding it back specifically. And then, of course, I mean, come on, later on, she suddenly decides that they're going to be called Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet when they're out in California. Prince Edward, on the other hand, very sensibly decided that his children would not have royal titles when they were going through school because it would make it much easier for them. They're entitled to them, but they don't actually use them.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Interesting to see what happens when Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet actually go to school and mix with, Master so-and-so and Miss so-and-so. Children can be terrible. And the bullying for those two children, I think she's made a rod for their own backs. And like Hugo, I remember the thing about the titles, and she was trying to make a race point on those titles, and I found it disgraceful. And even more disgraceful was the fact that the guy sitting next to her husband, would have known that, he was part of the family. All he had to do was look it up beforehand. So he would have known that those kids would eventually get those titles. And why on earth, he didn't stop her putting her, sizable foot into her mouth? I have no idea.
Well, we've seen Prince Harry this week in his interview with People talk about how supportive he is of Meghan's new business ventures. Hugo, does it surprise you at all that Meghan did not defend him over the last few weeks as the Sentebale chaos started to unfold, especially when there were accusations of misconduct when it came to race and misogyny? All Meghan Markle had to do was release one statement or post one Instagram post and say, standing by the Sentebale co-founder who I believe in. I mean, there didn't have to be bells and whistles. It doesn't have to be a video. But it's surprising to me to watch this man give up his entire life, his entire family, so that Meghan Markle can sell cookies, and not see her ever take up for him ever. It's always about him elevating her.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I mean, look at what happened at the Invictus Games when she seized the microphone and sort of did a sort of 10-minute introduction when she was the person on the stage saying rather sort of annoyingly, well, I'm going to introduce somebody in a minute onto the platform. I mean, come off it. It's quite simple what's going on. He is a hostage, basically. And also, I think, if I take it one step further, my feeling is that he's petrified of her and petrified of losing her. Do you know that syndrome people get into sometimes? It's not a nice state to be in.
Yes. Charles, you have seen Sentebale grow, and you've seen how much it meant to him, at least at the beginning. I mean, Dr. Sophie Shandaka says today that she was having to beg Prince Harry to actually come visit. And to Hugo's point, it might have been because Mama had put her foot down and was like, I need you to stay here. I don't want you going over there. I need you to stay here and be with us. Do you think that this is a huge loss for Prince Harry? And does it surprise you that Meghan Markle hasn't supported him throughout the process, especially hearing Dr. Sophie Shandaka say that Meghan Markle actually instigated the fallout?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And the fact is, Sentebale was really his first real big charity, because of his mother and Princess also as well, the loss of his mother as well. So it was a heart thing for them to set up. And all of this, they seem to have forgotten about the people that they're there to try to help, these children with AIDS and other diseases. And when you looked at the videos which have been played over and over again on social media of that dreadful polo match, of where Meghan is standing next to Harry and Sophie comes through and has got to then go under the cup to be ushered out of the way by Meghan. That speaks volumes, and there is no doubt in my mind that the one person who you can say is probably the lead problem is Meghan Markle in all this. I mean, I've watched interviews with Sophie, and she sounds a really reasonable woman. There clearly has been something going on wrong. I'm surprised that the trustees, who are all, if you like, Harry's mates and everything else, resigned straight away. Why didn't they stay and sort of try to sort it all out? It's just a terrible, terrible mess. Terrible mess.
Well, Hugo, to Dr. Sophie's point, it does kind of feel like they were Dr. Sophie's defense of all of Prince Harry's friends. We know that they were all Prince Harry's friends that were on the board and the trustees, because she said she would just be in a meeting and Prince Harry would be like, I'm introducing my friend to the board now. And that would kind of frustrate her, because she said that there was no real protocol or process. It would just be like, here's Prince Harry introducing us to another friend. But she did say that she felt like their ultimate objective was to blow it up so that he could return to be the savior and fix it all. Does that make sense to you, hearing that explanation? I'm going to say, because before you can say it, because you're very good at this, obviously there are two sides to every story and we don't know the ins and outs. We don't know all the details. But to me, listening to her explanation, they come out and say she's spending all this money to try to fundraise. And she comes out and says, I am having trouble fundraising because your brand is toxic, because people are asking me about you and your wife. For every claim they have, she has a legitimate sounding reaction.
Well, there you have the problem. Is that in a sense he's probably become a liability now for that very reason. I mean, everybody always wants to talk about them, what's going on with them, and the focus should be on the charity. So, he probably will end up as having been the founder of a really good idea. And of course, the other thing is the Invictus Games. I mean, how long is that going to go on for? Then is he going to drop that as well? Are they going to find that he's too much trouble? Are they going to find that they have to put up with all her demands? And this cuts him off from the two remaining things for which all his life he was trained and which he is very good at. I mean, I too have seen him in foreign countries. I've seen him playing cricket with the children. They love him. And he also, in the olden days, he always looked so happy for the simple reason that he was putting something into life rather than taking something out of life. And you find usually that people are much happier when they're doing good for others. Sounds pompous, but it's true.
Hugo talked earlier on about Princess Diana and how great she was, and I think Harry has forgotten entirely how his mother operated when it came to her charities. She walked into a room and it was $10,000 a plate. There was no, I'm making some jam. There was no, I'm selling clothes. I'm just here to help the charity. And the big thing as well is that, unfortunately, when she died, one of the charities appointed a guy called David Ginola, who is a very famous French footballer, and to her position in that charity, and the money that came in went from top end to zero because it wasn't Princess Diana, and that was her makeup entirely. And Harry seems to have forgotten that he should be doing exactly what his mother was doing. I've got great admiration for him on his Invictus Games. I did have admiration for him on Sentebale and his well child. He when he's there with the children and everything else, he's fabulous. But he seems to have forgotten the main function of what he's there, and that is to draw in the money to help that particular charity.
I feel like had Harry and Meghan not gone such a bitter and vengeful route once they stepped away from the royal family, they could have gone the Princess Diana route. They could have just been sitting in rooms when people paying $10,000 dollars a plate to be in their essence. But because they've been so bitter and nasty, they've lost their sparkle. And because they've overshared, they've lost the mystery that makes the royal family so special. I know way too much about these people's lives. Every week now, Meghan Markle's dropping a podcast telling me about some new medical ailment that I didn't ask for. And they've just lost that thing that made them so glossy and beautiful and gorgeous. And to Hugo's point, where's Prince Harry's joy? I haven't seen joy written on his face in, probably since his wedding day.
No, I think you're right, and I think as well you've got to remember it was not the British people, and it was not the British royal family that kicked them out. It was their decision to go, and the reason they decided to go is that Meghan realised that in the pecking order of the royal family, she was maybe 3 or 4.
She was
So
sixth on the call sheet again, like at
Oh
Suits.
yeah. But that's the point of it. She could have. I watched them on when they did jobs in the UK when it was like the old days of Diana. It was 10 deep in the pavement, watching the whole thing. People wanted to see them. People wanted to get close to them. People wanted to enjoy their company, and it was them that suddenly saw that, hang on a second, William's getting all this, benefits and everything else, and he's going to be king. Well, what about us? What are we going to be? Diana's one wish was that when William became king, is that the guy who stood by his side would be Harry. That ain't going to happen anymore.
I don't think so either, Hugo. I don't think so either.
No, there's an interesting historical sort of comparison that you could make, which was that the Duke of Windsor, after he abdicated, he basically thought he could come back and reinvent himself as a younger brother of the king and bring Wallis Simpson with him. Well, no way, that wasn't going to happen. So when he got this invitation to go to Berlin, he took her with him, and the Foreign Office were absolutely furious. He had no right to go to Berlin. He wasn't representing the royal family, and he was really only doing it in a way to sort of show that he was still something of a world figure. And that she was going to be respected. I mean, forget all the ridiculous Nazi stuff which has come subsequently. We won't go into that at this moment. But that wasn't why they went to Berlin. They went to Berlin for that because they were sent there to look at housing, but also because a man said, you are a man of the world. You fought in the First World War, or the Great War, as they would have called it. Maybe you can do some good, by doing it. And he was acting independently. So again, I wonder what the Foreign Office thought about the Ukraine trip. I mean, I don't know how that came about, but he's returning to being a sort of royal. That's a sort of royal visit, such as the others do. And yet he has in a way no right to do that because he's not representing this country anymore. And then, of course, you get people saying, is he only there to get publicity for himself? So it backfires.
Yes, because I truly felt like the Ukraine visit, and a little bit along with the London visit, because I didn't see the value in him physically being there. I felt like that was all to distract from Sentebale, because the Sentebale narrative had gotten so out of control, and American media was not siding with Prince Harry. So I felt like, I'm going to jump on a plane. I'm going to go to London. I'm going to reposition myself as the victim. I can't come to my home country because I'm in danger and my daddy won't help me. And then goes over to Ukraine so that he can also remind us, oh, by the way, I do a lot of stuff with veterans, so I'm still a good guy. Honestly, Hugo, they've put themselves in this position of us being cynical about them, because there's no consistency when it comes to just doing good. There seems to be an ulterior motive in everything that they do. And they spent so much time trashing the royal family that we don't consider them these uplifters the way we do William and Catherine.
Exactly, and that's the sad thing, is that I still think that that especially after Spare, funnily enough, when I think in Middle America, and a guy in his farmyard, sort of, if he read about Spare, he'd say, I didn't like somebody writing about his father like that. It's like, you just didn't do that. He's not a good guy to do that. Of course, he didn't write the book himself. It was ghosted, as you know, by J.R. Moringa, a very clever writer, who actually said at one point in the New Yorker that his memoirs were not the story of his life, but a series of incidents that would interest the general public. So you can disregard an awful lot of it. I could go on at length about the mistakes and also the misinterpretations. I won't bore you with that, but
but they're good. They're good. You're right.
Yeah.
Charles, where do you see Harry and Meghan going from here? I'm exhausted with the Meghan Markle oversaturation right now. Is she going to continue on with this trend? She had a source tell the New York Post in December of 2024 that 2025 was going to be the year of the Markle sparkle. Immediately, she's torn to shreds for her walking through the rubble of the fires in LA. So she postponed her show. She released her show. It was torn to shreds. And then she tries to distract with, I got a season 2. Immediately after that, releases a podcast. Are we ever going to get a break?
I don't think so. I mean, clearly, this bubble is going to burst at some stage or other. I mean, I don't know how it's going to burst. I mean, people talk about them divorcing. I really genuinely hope that they don't, because they've only really got each other left. And I would hate to see, a marriage break up the way things seem to be going. But something is bound to happen that will change the way things are going. I mean, Meghan's going to carry on with all this rubbish that she does and everything else, and Harry is as we know is now going to be left picking up bits and pieces and maybe going off to see a couple of charities and everything else, which I think he's very good at. I mean, I like to see him do that, but he needs to stop moaning about his family. He's got to realize, he's got to get it into his brain that he lives in Montecito. The British public are not going to pay for his security when he comes to this country. And with the greatest of respect to you, Kinsey, America's a lot deadlier.
That's what I think too.
To live in than it is in Britain. That much I can assure you. And we have a few problems, but nowhere near as much as you guys have.
Amen. I feel you. Hugo, did you have a reaction before I shut us down?
Well, only just to say that, of course, when he does come to this country, when he attends the Platinum Jubilee of the Queen or the Queen's funeral, he is encompassed in the same security barrier, as all the rest of them. So I don't know what he's whining about. I agree with Charles. I mean, I think I'm sure there's some dangers, but I don't see him as a particular target. I also think that probably he's just what happens to people. He's got into this and he's not going to let it go. And the lawyers, one way and another, are encouraging him, have another go. You might yet win. And guess who's going to be the real winners? The lawyers.
Yeah, exactly. Well, also, Hugo, it's my understanding that the royal family or the institution, I don't know exactly who to refer to here, but it's my understanding that Prince Harry has been told that he is allowed to stay on site. If he is in London, he's allowed to stay in Buckingham Palace. He's allowed to stay in one of the venues when he visits. I don't know if it's necessarily encouraged when he's there to sue the government, but I have heard that he is welcome to stay in certain spaces as long as he gives them the appropriate notice, and that Prince Harry chooses to stay in these hotels, which in my opinion elevate his security concerns to not be staying at a palace where there's already all of this protocol in place.
Well, that's quite likely. I don't know the answer to that, to be quite honest. I don't know whether he would argue that if he does that his room's going to be bugged or something. I mean, he may have some silly reason for not wishing to be there, or he may feel that he's too observed and that sort of thing. I just don't know. But he does seem to pop up from time to time, and as you rightly say, he stays in strange hotels at his own volition.
So weird.